Good evening and welcome to the show. My name's Neil Reynolds and this is Sports Weekly. So, let's see what's coming up on tonight's show. Firstly, a roundup of what's been going on over the past week around the sporting world. We talk to Mark Kemp, a sports sponsorship and commercial manager. Also, we'll be taking a look at how rugby league is thriving as a predominantly northern sport right here in the capital. And finally, we hope to leave you inspired as we look at the amazing work of the Manchester United Foundation and a young man called Sean Malone. But first, here's the latest news and gossip. So, Lewis Hamilton's reign as world champion is over as Nico Rosberg gained enough points by finishing second in Abu Dhabi to claim his first Formula One world title on Sunday. Following in his father Keke Rosberg's footsteps, he clinched the crown by 5 points. Hamilton controlled the race from the front, but was under instruction from Mercedes management not to try any strategic games to delay Rosberg. However, he disregarded message after message to speed up and prevent Vettel and Red Bull's Max Verstappen from closing on Rosberg. The German in turn complained on the radio to the team to consider doing something, and a tense title battle will do nothing to improve the cool relationship between the two drivers. England continued their current run of wins against Argentina despite going down to 14 men early in the game when Elliot Daly saw red. Winger Daly was dismissed for taking out Leonardo Senatori in mid-air, but a penalty try and 3 Owen Farrell penalties opened up a 16-0 lead. Tries from Facundo Isa and Santiago Cordero cut the gap to 2 points. A Johnny May score pulled England clear, and coach Eddie Jones described May as a player.
Well, he does. As I said, he doesn't know what he's doing half the time, so he just runs. Someone says, yeah, run there, he runs there. Someone says, run there, he runs there. No, he worked very hard today. So again, it's a credit to the strength and conditioning staff for the job they've done over the last 2 weeks to get him right to play. I thought he was very good today.
Argentina's Enrique also sent off for a stamp on Joe Marler, with Marler also seeing yellow. It's England's 12th win under Eddie Jones and sets them up for next Saturday's visit of the old enemy Australia, when another victory would equal the Red Roses' longest winning run set across 2002 and 2003. Chelsea, well, they returned to the top of the table after coming from behind at Stamford Bridge to inflict Tottenham's first Premier League defeat of the season. Spurs, well, they looked on course to recover from their midweek Champions League exit when Christian Eriksen's superb 11th minute strike put them in front. Maurizio Pochettino's side were completely dominant until the closing seconds of the first half when Pedro curled in a spectacular right-foot effort to draw Chelsea level. And Spurs' miserable record at Stamford Bridge was extended to 30 games without a win, dating back to February 1990, after Victor Moses scored what proved to be the winner 6 minutes after the restart, as Chelsea recorded a 7th league victory in succession. Manager Antonio Conte was asked what was needed to stay on course for Chelsea to win the title.
It's important to stay humble, to continue to work, to trust in our work, because above all after this type of game, because today we won a game against a really strong team.
There were wins this weekend for Arsenal over Bournemouth, with Sanchez scoring twice. Manchester City won away at Burnley, and Liverpool won at home again against Sunderland, but at the cost of an injury to Philippe Coutinho. Manchester United boss Jose Mourinho again made the headlines for all the wrong reasons by being sent to the stands during the 1-1 draw at home to West Ham United. Manchester United have now dropped 8 points in their last 4 home games and sit 6th in the table. Indian teenager Aditi Ashok has confirmed her star status by registering her 2nd straight victory on the Ladies European Tour at the inaugural Qatar Ladies Open in Doha, just a fortnight after claiming her maiden win at the Hero Women's Indian Open. The 18-year-old rookie professional from Bangalore shot a final round of 3 under par 69 on a weather-disrupted last day at Doha Golf Club for a total of 15 under par and a 3-stroke win over Lilia Hall and Caroline Headwall. The Qatar Ladies Open was the first ever women's professional golf tournament in the country and was part of the Ladies European Tour's new Middle East series, incorporating events in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Now, all our congratulations to Aditi, who, since we spoke to her, has gone from strength to strength. Coming up this week, we see the end of the 3rd test in Mohali. Tuesday and Wednesday see the League Cup quarter-finals in England, and the UK Snooker Championships continue until the 4th of December. And finally, in other news, Mo Farah, a known Arsenal supporter, spent some time with Mesut Ozil at the Emirates as he saw them beat Bournemouth. And actress Julia Roberts, well, she visited Old Trafford this weekend and has now officially spent more time on the pitch than Bastian Schweinsteiger this season. And that was this week's News and Gossip. So, on this week's Sport of the Week, we look at a very different aspect of the sporting world. I'm joined today by Mark Kemp, who is a commercial and sponsorship manager from the world of sport. Mark, welcome to the show. When it comes to, obviously our viewers will see the names and the logos on players' shirts and stuff. How do those logos actually get there?
Wow, there's a question. Heat pressed at one point, but before that, we've got all the work that goes into identifying the brands, researching the brands, making sure it's a brand fit, and moving forward as a whole process.
You say brand fit. What does that actually mean?
Well, I mean, if you take a Man United, then obviously you're talking about a whole global brand, and that global brand has to be right in China, it has to be right in the UK, it has to be right in the US. So they're going to have a whole infrastructure that's built behind what they do. And everything that they work with and the people they work with want to become synonymous with the Man United brand because that's the flagship brand. And then, their brand becomes stronger because of that association.
You were at Queen's Park Rangers for a time.
Yes. Yeah, I was at Queen's Park Rangers for a time, and we were, you work very hard to look after your own sponsors, but there are obviously central fund sponsors that set up. The Premiership in rugby is a prime example. They have their central funding partners, the Aviva Premiership and all those kind of things, which drop down from there afterwards. And they are central pockets. So that becomes the responsibility of the Premiership to look after that as a sponsorship. And as a club sponsorship manager, you're working with them all the time in terms of making sure the activation and the enhancement of that brand is carried across your venue, as is with the Premiership, because it is across all 12 venues. And then the stronger you become as a group and a collective, the better you are at going and then getting bigger sponsors and more people interested.
Do you see the sponsorship money dripping down into the lower leagues? For example, you've got the Championship in rugby, and you've got the Championship in Rugby League, and you look at Leagues 1 and League 2, and clearly they're not going to make the same kind of money. But do you think there's a chance that Premier League clubs can look at these smaller clubs and say, well, look, these are our sponsors, why can't we help these clubs out?
Yeah, short answer to that is it would be really nice, but I think it's always going to be a no. I think, at the end of the day, you are protective of your rights as a club. Premiership rugby for many years has moved forward and grown greatly. You know, you look at the BT Sport TV deal and everything else. So there's your big rugby UK TV rights package.
Okay, so now I know you've worked quite heavily in rugby. I know you were at London Irish, you've been with London Scottish.
Yeah.
Now, the two fastest growing markets in rugby are, I probably think, would probably be China and probably the United States of America, and funnily enough, the Middle East as well, because I know the UAE and Jordan now have rugby teams. I was reading about the Jordanian rugby team just the other day. Do you think that these emerging markets could potentially take over from, you know, the north-south, northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere rugby kind of family?
I think the thing is that everybody knows rugby is it's a growing market. It has to be a growing market. It's, you know, it's certainly in our hemisphere sits 2, 3, 4 on the list of sports. If you drop down to New Zealand, you know, you won't see anything other than rugby until you get to about page 8 or 9, if you're lucky, of a newspaper. Same with South Africa. Australia's a little bit diverse because they have obviously Aussie rules football and all the rugby league and the rugby union that all fits in there. So it is the secondary rugby market is what you're looking at, and the European sides are now starting to come back. Spain had a 10-year plan, fantastic 10-year plan. That 10-year plan was for the men's and the ladies' teams to reach the Olympics.
The Georgians are coming through,
and they achieved that. Georgians are coming through. The whole of that European rugby second tier is coming through, and it's great that there are now other elements that are looking at that. Brilliant. You know, Dubai Sevens kicks off next weekend.
That's right,
It's, you know, it is one of the showcases of rugby sevens in the world.
Brilliant. Now, I know you're about to move on to pastures new, excuse the pun,
Yes.
to become commercial director of UK and Ireland for Rhino Turf.
Yes, indeed.
Now, there's a few teams that have it already. We worked with London Broncos. They have they share with Ealing Trailfinders, so obviously they have that pitch. I know Brentford have had that pitch. Can you tell us a bit about Rhino Turf? What is Rhino Turf?
Well, it's what it says on the tin. It's a third generation, fourth generation playing surface. We use a grass which is called VT60, and it's about having that installed properly, and then creating something like you have at Ealing Trailfinders. Yeah. London Irish have a training ground as well, and it genuinely is just exactly that. The great thing about it is it gives a consistency of play, it gives a consistency of service for people to work with, and more importantly, particularly for sides like Ealing, it gives them another business plan. Suddenly they have a pitch which you wouldn't get anywhere near except for match day and perhaps 2 or 3 training runs. You know, now that can be rented out every hour of the day. And it worked well, but it's key that the install's right. It's key, you know. There's lots of surfaces, if you like, but it's what goes in. It's how the surface goes in. It's how the whole structure comes out. And I've been on a steep learning curve coming from one side of the fence to the other side of the fence. So, no, it's very exciting. Very exciting to be looking at. We're also bringing out a kind of new element as well. We're bringing out a tech zone, which is going to be very specific to rugby while all the equipment is in play, but it gives you a surface that you can do anything on afterwards. Amazing. So that's very exciting.
Brilliant. Mark, look, thank you so much for your time. Now, if you want some more information about Rhino Turf, you can go to www.rhino-turf.com, and that's all we have time for on this week's Sport of the Week. Now, each week we visit sports teams, grounds and organisations to try and show you the things you wouldn't normally see as we go behind the scenes. This week, we visited the London Broncos, the only professional rugby league club here in the capital. With the sport huge in Australia and predominantly more popular in the north of England, we spoke to head coach Andrew Henderson to find out more about the club and how the Broncos are changing the face of rugby league here in the south. Take a look.
Rugby league is a bigger sport in Australia. There's a lot more obviously people playing the game. There's a lot more infrastructure around the game, money invested in the game over there. So the difference here is obviously Australia, it's more of a dominant sport, whereas in England it's predominantly a strong sport in certain parts of the north of England. It has now expanded to the south of England, and it's got pockets of France where it's strong. But yeah, that's probably the difference between the two countries. The tough thing for the Broncos is they haven't had much success in their short existence. So the club's been around 36 years. We've had 22 different home grounds, so it's been very nomadic as a club. It hasn't put any foundations or roots down anywhere or somewhere they can call home. So I thought it was important we brought the club back to West London. We've now got a facility that, you know, the vision of the chairman is that the facility can grow as we grow, and I think that can realistically happen.
12-month year is split into 3 phases. So you've got the off-season, which is where the players are off away from here for 6 weeks. That's the end of the season. After this, the players are going to a pre-season phase, which goes from November until February. And this phase will go through 5 to 6 gym sessions a week, 3 to 4 sessions a day, gym sessions, speed sessions, conditioning sessions. Essentially in this phase, that 3.5-month period, you're preparing the boys, their bodies for the season. At the end of February going into March is the start of our season, and from February up until October, that is pre-season. So you've got your off-season, your pre-season and your in-season.
A typical day for the boys would they come in, they do a bit of video work with us in the morning if we're previewing the opposition, and then they'll go out, they'll do some prehab work, you know, just to activate the body, injury prevention stuff, they'll do a bit of that. Then they'll go on the field, do some extras, you know, individual specific extras, so whether it's the kickers doing some kicking work, backs might be doing some catching, some finishing work, you know, the forwards might be doing a little bit of tight, close defensive work or some offload work, things like that. And then we come into the main session, which generally runs for about an hour and 15, an hour and a half max.
We play in the summer, so we get better conditions, more sunshine, less rain, faster pitches, harder pitches. That brings about less errors, less knock-ons, less breaks in play. Also the temperature's hotter, so the players are working harder again. Our boys just cannot have body fat on them because they've got to work so hard. We feed them the basics: eggs, whole wheat grain bread, porridge, fruit. That's one example of a meal. Then 3 hours later they'll be eating again. Example, chicken salad with you know, a small side of potatoes, that type of thing. And the big thing for us is the routine of it. So yeah, we eat well, but it's the consistency of eating every single 3 hours, all the way up till 10 p.m. at night.
When I first got here, I saw a team in London, not a club in London, so part of my vision was to try and bring the club together, get the junior sides, the under-16s, our academy sides, together, based at the same base that the first team were, training, playing at the same venue, and I think that's been a real positive, had a real positive impact on where the club's going at the moment. So I think we're starting to see the early signs of that coming together. But again, it's a long process, you know, to where we want to get to. But the reality is, if we can build each year and be better each year, that's my kind of thought process. As long as we're better each year, both on and off the field, and we're progressing or moving forward, then hopefully, finally, long term, we'll see that long-term success, longevity of the club, stability of the club, and hopefully a very, very successful rugby league team in the south.
London Broncos have gone from strength to strength since we filmed with them earlier this year. They finished second in the Kingstone Press Championship and went through to the Super 8 qualifiers, playing Super League sides such as Leeds Rhinos, Huddersfield Giants and the Salford Red Devils, whom they beat. But narrowly, they missed out on the chance of promotion to the Super League. There'll be many new and old faces joining the squad for the 2017-18 season, as head coach Andrew Henderson rings the changes in the hope that London Broncos can again challenge for a place in the Super League. And we here at Sports Weekly, well, we wish them all the luck in the world for next year's campaign. To round off the show each week, we look at the people, foundations and sporting organisations providing inspiration for children and young people around the UK. As a young teenager, Sean Malone was a thriving West End star treading the boards in the hit play Billy Elliot. A huge United fan, Sean admits he was always playing football backstage whilst the other boys were practicing their lines. A couple of years later, everything changed for Sean. He contracted sinusitis, and the infection backtracked into his brain, leaving him in a coma with only a 10% chance of survival. Whilst Sean was in hospital, the Manchester United players visited during their annual Christmas trip. On that very same day, Sean walked again for the first time in 6 months, and his journey with Manchester United had begun. His journey has made him an inspiration to his peers, and here is his heartwarming story.
I've always been a United fan since I was young. Football's always been something I was into. When I was younger, I was a dancer and an actor, and while everyone else was doing like the singing exercises, I was just playing some football, causing a bit of trouble. When I was 15, I got sinusitis, and the infection kind of backtracked to my brain, and that caused like my brain to get damaged.
Being told that your child's got less than 10% chance of pulling through, it's a mother's worst nightmare. It comes out of a coma, starts breathing for himself, and you think, it's going to be okay. He'd gone from being fully able-bodied to having a left-sided weakness to having epilepsy. It's hard because although you've still got your son, it might not be the same.
The 23rd of December was the day I walked for the first time. That day the United team showing up, I didn't even know they'd be coming, but it was a great day.
The foundation, I'd say, was Sean's lifeline. United were there on the most amazing day when he started to walk again, and they've been there throughout his rehabilitation, really.
My physio that told me about the ability counts at United, I'd worried what it would be like. It was quite nice to see like the range of different levels of players. Then I knew that I could just go and have a good game of football and feel like I fit in. Now I spend like an hour coaching the under-16 teams. It really helped me and gave me confidence in what I could still do and possibilities. As a coach, these kids might look at me and think, Sean's had problems and Sean's coaching now, and give them the self-belief to know that they could do something.
The Manchester United Foundation do some incredible work in and around the northwest of England and all over the world. And they're inspiring young people on a daily basis to be the best that they can be. If you want to find out more, visit their website at www.mufoundation.org. Now, don't forget to tweet us where you're watching your sport this week to @ICSportsWeekly or on the Sports Weekly Facebook page, or email us at sports@islamchannel.tv. Coming up on next week's show, we go behind the scenes as we take a tour of the home of cricket, Lords. And we hope you'll be inspired as we talk to incredible young men who just happen to be the oldest members of the England Supporters Club. Thanks for joining us here on Sports Weekly. Have a great sporting week, whatever you're watching. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye for now.